Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the newest edition of the Endurance Life 360 podcast. I'm your host, Coach Jay Ridgway. And today I'm super excited to have two dear friends of mine, past athletes that are on the show today, talk about their journey, talk about one of the big endeavors that they have coming up just in the next couple of weeks here. Owen and Marianne Gray, affectionately known as OMG. Welcome to the show. How are you doing, guys?
Doing great, Jay.
Thanks for having us, Jay.
Yeah, my pleasure. So for the audience here, what's exciting about this is that Owen and Marianne and I have been associates for quite a few years now. I don't know how many decades, at least going on potentially 2 decades now, but probably the late 2000s is probably when we started really doing stuff together with boot camp programs and triathlon programs and things of that nature. But the reason why we're here, everybody, is that most recently Owen, with the support of Marianne, had done the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic rowing challenge from the Canary Islands, right? And then where did you wind up? Where did you guys wind up?
And rode west to Antigua in the Caribbean.
Yeah, a phenomenal thing. And give me the timeline of that again, because it was super fun just following you on your journey on that.
So that we launched in December 12th of 2021 and finished it towards the end of February of 2022. It was a 70-day, 19-hour and change crossing.
Incredible. And we'll go into that. We've got some great photos of that, of your journey along the way. But that was then. And here we are now. And you've decided collectively as a team to do a different challenge on a different ocean, which is slightly bigger than the other one. You're looking at doing what has been rebranded as the world's toughest row. And you're leaving the mainland of the US and you're trekking out via ocean water rowboat, and not just a simple rowboat, but the fairly sophisticated one, which we'll be excited to share those photos, to the island of Kauai in Hawaii. And when is that all happening?
So the race is anticipated to launch on June 12th at 10:30 Pacific time.
In Monterey.
In Monterey.
Monterey, exactly.
Exciting. So we'll get to that point here. That's the reason why the excitement of having this is not something that's normally in my wheelhouse, not in my wheelhouse whatsoever. It's not traditional running. It's not traditional triathlon. It's not swim, bike, and run. This is a completely different endurance event that takes on all the different challenges of how do you plan and have the nutrition for that, how you have the mental fortitude to get through day in and day out of not being on stable, solid ground and things of that nature. So I'm going to definitely dive into some of those aspects of what you went through with the Atlantic challenge. And then you have the dynamic here that you won't be alone on this one. This one is a requirement, which I'll be fascinated to understand the reasonings for that. But you're going to have a partner this time, a female partner in particular, who's also experienced rower, Jamie. So that's a new dynamic that you'll be experiencing for the first time too. But let's roll it all back. Let's talk about, how does Owen, with the support of Marianne, get to this point? As I understand and kind of read through your bio, kind of similar to me, father was military, Army, military brat. Is that right? Where'd you grow up, Owen?
That's right. So my dad was career Army, 20 plus years in the service. And so as a result of that, we lived in Massachusetts, Texas, Germany, Ireland growing up. Yeah. So as anybody that's an Army brat, you move every 2 to 3 years and it's always on the go.
How long was that? How long was that journey? Was that all the way through your high school years or just mostly in your?
It was all the way up to my junior year. So my parents knew my dad was going to retire in my junior year. Yeah. So in the summer of sophomore year, we moved back my dad and mom decided to retire in Texas. So we moved back to Killeen, Texas. And I finished out high school, my last 2 years in Killeen, Texas.
And then this is something that I didn't know, which, endurance coach, you learn a lot about your athletes to a certain degree, but then, there's a lot of other things you just don't know about their background. But you, instead of following your father's footsteps into the Army, You went in the Navy, is that right?
That's right. So I didn't have the grades or the money to go to college. And so I looked at the military as an option.
Yep.
And I actually was kind of young. I was only 17 as a senior, sign and allowing me to enlist. And so they would only agree to let me go in either the Air Force or the Navy. And so I chose the Navy.
Yeah, well,
And
that had been a tough conversation to sit down with your career Army father, and I know from firsthand, Army Navy.
no, he was actually, he thought the education that the Army or the Air Force offered was better than what you get. Navy or Air Force was better than what you get in the Army. So he was kind of pro those two.
He was good. So there was never any animosity when it was the time for the Army Navy football game, and there wasn't any bad blood between the two.
No.
Yeah. So let's kind of fast forward then, Owen, through that. How many years in the Navy, if I may ask? I don't know if you said that or not.
I was in for 6 years, and I ended up kind of what happened is being in the Navy for 6 years. I went in and I was basically a radar technician. And so I ended up coming out to California and going to school at Mare Island. And then when I got done with my school, I got signed to a ship that was based out of Alameda. And I spent 4 years on the USS California out of Alameda. And so when I got out of the Navy after 6 years, I stayed in the Bay Area.
I was not aware of that. So there is the Bay Area connection, everybody, right there. So, and speaking of that, so for the audience that may or may not know, I think some of them know that I have relocated from the Bay Area where I was born and raised, but though I went to school away, but came back. But I'm now in Reno, Nevada, in the Reno Tahoe area, and obviously loving and enjoying that. But it's been now 4 years for us. But you guys got a year before me. So you guys are literally 2 or 3 miles down the road, everybody. They're also in Reno, Nevada, but that was not what your intention was. You guys, you want to kind of talk about this, and I'm being super sensitive because it's obviously an emotional journey, but you guys were successful in business, and we'll touch a little bit about this in a second, but just to kind of figure out how did you wind up in Reno. You guys were retiring or planning on retiring, had built your dream home in Santa Rosa, California. Was that correct?
Close.
It was in Napa.
It was in Napa. Got it. My apologies. Napa. Yes.
Fairly similar.
Well, we'd had houses in Napa for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And we had finally found one that we were planning on having as our forever home. And then we were splitting our time between San Francisco and Napa. And in 2017, the Atlas Peak wildfire came along and burnt our house down. And that was in 2017, was the same year that Marianne's company closed their West Coast location. And our dog of 10 years, 9 years, passed away that summer. And so we were kind of like, that combined with some health issues I had in a couple of years previous, we were like, there's no assurances in life, and we're not going to sit around and wait and hope that we're going to be able to get around to do some big things. And so we made the decision to retire earlier than we thought we would.
Yeah.
And instead of rebuilding the house, we decided to uproot and make lemonade out of it. We're stuck on with the satellite.
Yeah, you're doing it. I'm picking you up now. Yeah. So just to kind of, for those, if we had the audio issues there, you guys, serious 3 life event issues, and then made the conscious decision to wind up over here in the high Sierras, the beautiful paradise of the high Eastern Sierras in Reno, Nevada. And here you are today. That said, being able to do the retirement component now, successful in the accounting space. which I have some experience with in my previous startup that I most recently worked with, but successful CPA, I think a very specialized corporate CPA. Is that right? You want to kind of touch on what you did and why you were so successful at it?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I worked for 26 years for Novogradac and Company, which is a CPA firm, had a nationwide CPA firm headquartered out of San Francisco. And when I started at the firm back in 1992,
Something like that.
something like that, there were 13 people in the firm. And when I left, there were over 850 people in the firm.
Wow.
In 26 locations. And we specialized in community development. So anything related to affordable housing, historic rehabilitation, renewable energy, community development programs. That was kind of what our kind of main focus was. And we were kind of considered one of the top firms in the country for that expertise.
Nice connection there. Now that I think about it, it's like, now that, and I understand, just so the audience knows, and I've known these two, they're close, almost, I want to say dear friends. We need to spend more time because we have no excuses because we literally live 3 miles away from each other. That said, these guys have always put on fundraising components. In the holidays, you're doing food drives, bring your canned food or whatever like that and do the drop off. You guys are always thinking about giving back to the community, and you're doing that now and working with a number of different entities here in Northern Nevada, which, we'll get a chance to talk about here. But when you did the Talisker Whiskey Challenge, that was not a selfish endeavor. You did that and you raised funds. And I wrote a pretty decent check, and my wife wrote a pretty decent check too. You guys raised some serious dollars. And I know you're doing that again. So before we go into the fun stuff here, let's kind of talk about, you're not just doing this for a selfish reason here, right? What do we do? What did you raise funds for the last event, your crossing of the Atlantic, and what are you doing this coming couple weeks here in June? Marianne or Owen, however you want to do it.
So I'm proud to say that through Owen's running the Atlantic Challenge, we raised over $207,000 for Okizu. I'm doing my talk show thing and holding their mug.
There you go. Well done.
With my water in it. So yeah, when Owen decided to do the Atlantic Challenge, the race organizers really kind of ask people if they want to do it for a charity. They really want to have that philanthropic bend to it.
Yeah.
And Owen immediately said, we've got to do it for Okizu. We've had a 25-ish year relationship with Okizu. Owen a little bit longer than me. Owen was a camp counselor there. We worked with family camp, and then Owen's now on their investment committee. So we've just seen their work with families impacted by childhood cancer. They offer, most notably, their camp programs for children with childhood cancer, but also their siblings. And this year, we're doing it again for the Pacific Challenge. But what's exciting is the day Owen Land launches on June 12th is Okizu's first day of summer camps. So it really kind of allows that just kind of marriage of this is the right charity partner for us. And we're super excited. We've raised $75,000 already on this endeavor, and we're hoping to raise $100,000. So we're super excited, and the work Okizu does is just fabulous.
Well, and one of the most, things for us is part of the reason we believe so much in what Okizu does is all of their programs are free of charge to the families. So the kids go to camp free of charge. When they have the family camps, they have bereavement camp, they have teen camp. They're one of only a handful of programs in the nation that actually offers a specific week-long camp for siblings of the kids that have cancers. So when you have a child that's going through oncology treatment, there's a lot of focus from the family on spending time with that child, as you would expect, and it's taking time away from the kids that are at home. And so there's, those kids have their own needs and are, benefiting from being able to go to a camp where they get to just be a normal kid again. and everything they do is free. And so we just really strongly believe in what their mission is.
Tremendous organization, and quite frankly, they're fortunate to have you two out there being on the leading front of being as creative as you can of finding ways to raise fundraising dollars by putting putting yourself at a little bit of risk out there, being out in the open ocean.
Well,
so pretty much a win-win there, I guess, right?
And I'll interject one other
Yeah.
kind of common connection we have with Okizu. So like our house burned down in the 2017 Atlas Peak fires, Okizu had searched for a number of years to find their permanent home. And in the 2019 Berry Creek fire, the camp burned down. And so they're now in the process of looking for new property, and they'll have to go through, the rebuilding process. And so fundraising for them right now is just critical as they gear up towards that rebuilding process. And right now, this year and last year, they rented camps. And so obviously when they rent a camp, their costs are higher than if it was their own property.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think what we'll do is, as a sort of a takeaway from this podcast, maybe I'll work with you, in particular, probably Marianne, on trying to get a little bit more information of, what are the initiatives that people that are contributing fundraising dollars to, where is it going? I think that's a great connection to have versus just, I'm just going to write a check and don't know where the money goes. So that's always a big component of that. That said, let's get into the fun stuff. I think the audience is probably want to see what's this crazy stuff about open ocean rowing and endeavors are all about. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here. This particular video you guys share with me. This is what the event that you're going to be taking on here in a number of weeks here in June from Monterey to Hawaii. Let me go ahead and share a screen. That's top one. Do we see the screen? Do you guys see it on your end? Let's get it going.
A new era built on 10 years of success. 4 destinations, 2 oceans, the Pacific, the Atlantic. This is the world's toughest road. People doing this are looking to test themselves, to find what they are capable of, because this is an incredibly honest experience.
It's an amazing thing. Everyone's got one ocean in them. We should definitely do it. It's going to be challenging, but that was the whole purpose of why I wanted to do it.
It was honestly mind-blowing. The greatest thing I've ever done.
Gives me goosebumps. I don't know about everybody else. Does it give you goosebumps? Whoops, hang on a sec here. Technical error on my part.
Did you know that hearing impairments
I did not know that hearing impairments about that. Owen, does that give you goosebumps when you see that, having done it?
Yeah, I mean, it helps me, the race is coming up, and I sometimes get so caught up in all the logistics of getting ready to get to the start line that sometimes I don't spend time reflecting back on what the row was like.
Yeah. 70 plus days. What was the specific amount of time?
70 days, 19 hours or 23 hours and 19 minutes.
19 hours, 23 minutes.
Something like that. Almost 71, but not 71.
So just to share with the audience, is a couple of dynamics here. So I obviously my wife and I and my network of friends, when Owen started this odyssey, if you will, adventure does it justice. There's a very cool app that was you would download, and it literally had GPS tracked all of the different competitors that were in there. And as I recall, there was one boat that had 5 rowers, and there was a whole bunch of tons of 4-person rowing. And then it kind of went down to 2 or 3, maybe 3 persons. And I think there was more than a handful of 2 persons, but there were only 4 people that were crazy enough to take on the challenge to row by themselves. And guess what? This guy on the other side of the screen for me was one of those 4. I think 3 were successful. One that I know was a good friend that he became close friends, had issues in the very beginning and was not able to do the row. And we won't necessarily go into detail, but the reason why I bring that up is that he did reattempt and did finally successfully complete that fairly recently, as I recall, and with not even the main level of support that you guys had with the formal event. He kind of did this kind of off the cuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, he did completely not only unsupported, but he wasn't in an organized event. He just self-planned it and did the row all on his own initiative.
Incredible, and just incredible just to kind of go through just the mental fortitude to kind of go through that. That said, visuals are always helpful. And if I may, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again because I've got some of the photos up here, and I would like for you guys to kind of navigate me through photos wise. But let's kind of walk through photos, the photographic journey of the event. And again, this is the Atlantic Challenge. So do you guys see the screen?
Yep. So that's a photo of me coming into the finish line. After the 70 days, I came in at about 3 a.m. in the morning, and the conditions were not favorable. I literally got spit out of the entrance to the bay 3 times by the wind and currents. So I don't have a happy look on my face at that moment.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine if you were to say how many times you had a happy face and how many times you had, like the face like that of intensity and just trying to get from point A to point B, I'm sure it's probably about 50-50 in my opinion, but you tell me. I'm sure that you were just smiling most that way once you're going in the right direction and we're having the challenges with Mother Nature.
Yeah, you definitely had a mix of emotions.
Yeah.
And again, that's the finish line photo. That's literally like after I crossed the finish line. It's a tradition to light flares to celebrate.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps looking at that as well too, just understanding how many miles we're talking at nautical miles was it from point A to point B?
3,000 miles.
If you do it straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you did about 3,200, which, I mean, you zigzag because Mother Nature doesn't let you go straight.
Yeah, and just to reconfirm that that is a very touching photo right there because of just how important it was. I mean, honestly, folks, just obviously being friends with them. I mean, Marianne is literally doing basic, math, trying to figure out the navigation for Owen, and she's literally three miles away from me doing this from her office, where they're at right now in their home. And meanwhile, he's almost, maybe not quite halfway around the world, but a pretty darn more than a stone's throw away, right? In the communication there, just really incredible feat there. I kind of going through, this is the new branding because you didn't have that before. I was commenting in the pregame show. Owen's obviously being the, knowing me with Pac West, he's professionally branded right now, everybody, with the Aloha Kai. You want to kind of talk about and touch about the naming on there, some significance to it?
Yeah, so when I did when I did the Atlantic and I was solo, we just used simply Owens Rowing as my team name.
Right.
But when I do in the Pacific and I now have a teammate, we felt it was appropriate to start fresh and come up with a new team name and have it be kind of new and original to us. And we also were thinking about the fact that since we're rowing to Hawaii, we wanted to have some nod to Hawaii. And so Aloha Kai is Hawaiian, and it means for the love of the sea or ocean.
Love it.
And we thought that was pretty appropriate given we both have done, the Atlantic, and now we're trying to do the Mid-Pacific. Yeah.
It's more than appropriate. It's perfect. I love the logo. It's super cool. And from a branding love of, brands and things like that, selfishly, I think it's just spot on. So very cool. And it looks good on your left chest there. You want to talk about this is, I think, your teammate, right?
Yeah, so this is Jamie, when she finished the Atlantic. So she actually did the Atlantic Challenge the same year I did. And she was on a two-person team with a British gentleman who she had, kind of, it was a story where she wanted to do the row, but she couldn't find teammates. And she had reached out to the Atlantic campaigns to see if they knew of anybody looking for a teammate. And her partner for this row had a teammate who had gotten, for one reason or another, was no longer able to do the row. And so he was actually looking for a teammate, and the race organizers put them in touch together, and they did the row together as a team. And I think the team name was Tropical Blue Wave.
Yeah, Tropical Blue Wave.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. This is the boat that you navigated for 3,000 plus miles. Is that right? Oh no, is this the new one?
Yeah, so I had already entered into an agreement to sell my old boat, Jack Keen,
Oh, that's right.
before we had decided to undertake the Mid-Pacific. And so I actually had to go out and find another boat. It's identical. It's the same model as my boat that I did the Atlantic on. And it's a brand oak R25. And this actually, you can see it shows Atlantic Challenge on it, because when we bought it from a team that did the Atlantic Challenge the same year we did it.
Yeah.
And we just left all of their logos on there, so except for the stern cabin.
Yeah.
And then that way we scratch it up during training, we don't care.
Yeah.
And then we put our new logo on just this week.
Yeah, and I've got the photos on that Marianne you sent me. We'll share that at the end because you've reskinned it. But yeah, I immediately caught the Aloha Kai's on the end there. So it's very cool. I mean, just
and this was taken down in Redondo. We did a training row where we rode from Redondo Beach down to Oceanside, and so this was us before we launched out of Redondo Harbor,
which was a little over 70 miles.
Yeah.
Love it. And then also too, you got, speaking of branding, you've got our local big University of Nevada, Reno Wolfpack sweatshirt on there. So
and it's hard to see, but we also have a logo on that front cabin. We actually are
Battleborn
by a local company here, Battleborn Batteries, that manufactures lithium batteries mostly for RV applications. And they came on board as a sponsor, and we're using their batteries in our boat for the crossing.
Love it. I love how we wove in. We're weaving in sponsors of yours. That's well done. Well done. This obviously, I think most everybody in the world, the modern world, can recognize that little bridge in the background. So you went out into the bay. I'm assuming that's the bay. You're not on the open ocean, or are you in? Yeah, you're in the bay.
That's in the bay. So we were as part of our race entrance, we have prerequisites that we have to complete, and we had a certain number of training hours that we had to do. And the race organizers treat the San Francisco Bay the equivalent of open ocean water rowing, given how choppy the conditions can get inside the bay.
Yeah.
And so that's one of our training rows we did during this past winter.
So for some of the novices, or just quite frankly, just folks that just have no idea what ocean rowing is like, let alone rowing in general, that's a pretty darn good shot of sort of the mechanical setup there. Do you want to kind of talk us through, are you doing, all upper body work here, Owen, or are you using other parts of your body? How does it work to row efficiently?
Yeah, so this is very much, it's identical to a scull setup, except that we don't have to feather our oars. And so you've got a sliding seat that you sit on, your feet are strapped in, and you're pushing with your legs, and then moving your core, and then finishing with your arms. So if you get a perfect stroke, it's 60% legs, 30% core, and 10% arms. Now, of course, in an ocean rowing environment, you almost rarely ever get a perfect row stroke.
Yeah, because you're tossing and turning and bobbing and weaving and everything else in between, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, when you were doing the Atlantic Challenge, it's not probably sunny and clear skies all the time.
No. I mean, you get over 70 days, you get a variety of everything from flat glass, not a cloud in the sky, not a movement of wind, to 40-foot waves and 20 plus mile an hour winds.
Yeah, there was a couple of shots of the boat in the promotional video that was pretty darn gnarly, for a lack of a better description. And I'm pretty darn certain, just following your journey, that you were going through some of that yourself, right?
Yeah, I never had a complete. So the boats are designed to self-right if you roll, and I never had a full roll, but I had what's called a knockdown. So the boat basically goes, vertical, or not vertical, horizontal. And so my whole right side of my body was in the water, and then you're waiting for the water to clear off the deck, and then the boat restabilizes itself.
Trying to put my head around that. That only happened one time, right?
That happened only one time that I actually was in the water. Yeah.
No,
But several,
and just to put it in context for everybody, about how many thousands of miles were you in the middle of the ocean when that happened?
That was pretty far, yeah, because it was probably 2 weeks before I finished.
Yeah. So he's in
Yeah.
the middle of the Atlantic, everybody, and you just can't call 911 or AAA and say, "Hey, I got a flat. Can you come tow me?" You're pretty much on your own. And there's more to it as we go along, of just the stuff that I remember you having to deal with, or trying to keep from being pushed out off direction, and having to use your anchor system, which, we can maybe talk about that. I don't know if some of these photos are in here, but just kind of plowing through. There's Jamie there. Love the smile. Hopefully that's mostly what you're going to see when you guys are out rowing together. But then, there was a lot of this, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, you obviously have amazing sunsets, sunrises. Um, there's probably nothing more amazing than being out on the ocean on a moonless night and how bright and vibrant the Milky Way is. You almost feel like you're rowing right through it.
Yeah, you mean some of the things that, not having experienced this, but I've done it as in my youth, of heading down into the Death Valley, back when it was a national monument, now a national park, but it's famous for the fact that it's not a lot of light noise or light pollution from artificial light, and viewing the stars and the galaxies, and the planets. It's spectacular. I mean, it is like that when you're in the middle of the ocean. There are no cities with artificial lights that are polluting the skies, right? It is crystal
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. I had asked Marianne to kind of talk about the nutrition, being a nutrition coach, as you know, Owen, whether or not I harped at you going into Ironman events and the like. It's absolutely a fundamental piece. You have the disciplines, right? The critical disciplines of triathlon. It's you're swimming, you're biking, you're running, you're transitioning, swim to bike, bike to run. But a big component factor of that is, and equally on the same pillar, is nutrition. It's just mind blowing what you guys go through. So this video, Marianne, does this kind of talk about the nutrition for you, Owen?
yeah, well, this is, I don't even think
Owen hasn't seen this, so.
this is probably last week when I was doing the meal prep for him, but go ahead and run it.
Welcome to Aloha Kai, specifically Owen's food prep. We're starting with snack packets. Has 16 items in it. Use them for 65 days. Starting the assembly line here. This is just part of the items. We will reload as we get less, like the food bag. Then we'll be working on the food bags. Here's all his freeze-dried food, multiple different flavors. And then here we have coffee and oatmeal packets for breakfast that will go in those food bags. And of course, we are being supervised by Torino.
It's just unbelievable to think about the amount of calories and how, and you being the accountant, which is natural for you, you're calculating all that. I mean, what do I need to be putting in by the hour on a daily basis? And Marianne, you said packing for 65 days, right? So this is a little bit different scenarios, just to hear me out here, than what you had to do as a solo boat, right? Because that, I don't know if we ever found the photo of that. I remember some photo that you had posted on the one for the Atlantic Challenge, because you put them into special waterproof bags and all that stuff. But here you're putting in 65 days worth of nutrition, but that's just for you, Owen. Jamie's got to put in her nutrition as well too, right? That's a lot of food that's sitting somewhere on that fairly small boat, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it kind of goes back a little bit to what since this is an organized event, the race organizers have all their mandatory race rules and mandatory equipment. And so nutrition is a huge part of that, what they have for mandatory equipment. And they basically have a requirement of how many calories you need to take per day based on your body weight. And so for my body weight, I have to take 6,000 calories roughly per day of food. And I get to choose how I break that down. But one of the things that they do is we got to take food for 65 days, but 20% of my meals have to be wet rations, like MREs, like in the military.
Yeah.
Be eaten without water, just in
Yep.
case your water maker dies or something like that. But typically what I end up doing is you'll have 4 main meals a day, and those will be typically like a backpacking. Mountain House is one of my favorite brands, and so I'll have 3 freeze-dried meals, and I'll have oatmeal with muesli for breakfast every morning with coffee.
Yeah.
And then that makes up about 2,000 of my calories a day. Then I've got another 4,000 calories that are in my snack bag. And the idea behind the snack bag is it's just stuff you can just continually be feeding yourself while you're rowing, or when you're not on the rowing station. But it's stuff that it's a little weird because you really don't care about the nutritional value of it. You're just simply looking for calories that you'll want to eat every day while you're out for that long. Because that's one of the problems they have, is that people just, trying to find food that people want to eat. And so my snack bag runs everything from Tahoe trail bars. I have 3 of those every day. One of my favorite kind of bars. But then I have like Snickers bars, payday bars. One of my favorite pleasures is chocolate croissants that you get at Costco.
Yeah.
190 calories a pop, and they never spoil. They're individually wrapped. I've got a pouch of beef jerky every day. Kind of
Muscle milk.
Oh yeah, muscle milk is a big one. So I have probably 3 bags of muscle milk, because muscle milk's nice at night, where you can just shake up a thing of muscle milk, shoot it, or if you're running a little low on energy, you can quickly shoot a muscle milk and pick your energy back up quickly.
Former big sponsor of PacWest back in the day. I think that was when you were around with me as well too. So it's good to see Muscle Milk still in the game, especially at the endurance level. So, you get all that, you put them in some special waterproof packets, you stuff them on down there, and then each day you just kind of pull out that packet and it just sits on top of the deck, and then you just kind of unzip it and you just kind of start dabbling in there. That said, 6,000 calories a day. And I know, is there only one person on station when you're a 2-person boat? So one's always, somebody, is it switching, or are you ever rowing together? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so mostly we will be doing a pattern of 2 hours on, 2 hours off. And so you got one person rowing for 2 hours. The other person, during their 2 hours off, they're doing things like eating, body care, which is a critical item, and then trying to find time to sleep. And then you got to navigate and do, comms checks with the safety team and with Marianne navigation.
Yep. Yeah. So a couple things that'll segue into, because you touched on them, but 6,000 calories in each bag each day, up to 65 days. Hopefully you won't touch the later half. You get in before 65 days, but you're equipped for that just in case. How many calories are you actually burning exercise wise and being exposed to the elements? It's not, it's not 6,000 calories. It's more than that. Let's just be honest.
Well, I think it's a combination of two things. One, when I did the Atlantic, I had to take a similar amount of calories, but you just can't eat 6,000 calories in a day. Well, if you do, you're not going to be rowing very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I ended up, like, when I did the Atlantic, I lost 30 pounds on the crossing. So, you know, I probably won't lose quite as much because this row shouldn't take as long, but you know, I'll still have a fair bit of body weight loss just because you're burning way more calories than you can consume.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Like you said, in the audience, those that are Ironman athletes that know the routine, like, you know, 3.5 hours before, you know, your designated start, you're trying to stuff in, you know, 1,500 calories in your body. And, you know, it's the most painful thing. It's sometimes even more painful than actually doing the Ironman. Here you've got 6,000 calories, but you just reconfirmed it's very rare you're getting all of those 6,000 calories into your body just because it's just so darn difficult, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so,
I
yeah,
can't remember. We had a ton of food left over after
Yeah.
I did the Atlantic. I'd expect to have food left over when I
Yeah.
do this road as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you touched on the dynamics of when a person is not rowing, you've got to take care of self body care, things of that nature. What does that mean? You guys there? Can you hear me?
So kind of one of the, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Just a
hear
little
us?
bit broken up. It's okay. I can hear you.
Yeah, no, in ocean rowing, one of the biggest issues that you're fighting is salt from the ocean, the spray. You're constantly getting wet with spray or waves. And so obviously salt creates, you know, is very abrasive.
Yeah.
So you're ending up with, you're sitting on your ass for, pardon my language, but you're sitting for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
And so avoiding sores on your undercarriage is a big issue. And, you know, in days gone by, people used to would row naked in order to get airflow and try to dry stuff out. But we've moved beyond that. So now what it is you basically take biodegradable body wipes. And so when you get off rowing station, before you go to sleep, the first thing you do is you wipe everything down with a biodegradable body wipe, and then you sleep pretty much, you know, nude so that you get airflow to dry everything out. And if you do that, I was very successful not having kind of big issues with sores, you know, saddle sores basically. But other people really suffer from saddle sores, and it can really become debilitating to the point where it's hard to sit down. And then once that happens, your row's compromised.
It's fascinating. Kind of thinking through that thought process. You said, you know, you're kind of sleeping naked. Well, here's a little bit different dynamic. It's one thing to be on a solo boat. Now you've got a teammate who also is a female. How is that all going to work here in terms of you guys are just going to get really close and know each other? Or how is that going to work? And how do you sleep? Do you sleep exposed to the outdoors, or do you go inside a compartment? I mean, there's not much room on that boat, right?
No. So the boat actually has a forward cabin and a stern cabin.
Yeah.
And so Jamie will have the forward cabin and I'll have the stern cabin.
Yeah.
And so it's
They have some privacy.
we definitely will have privacy.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't strip off until you get in your cabin just because you're getting wet usually.
Yep.
So, you know.
So the final big question, and probably some of the audience members are probably waiting to have this question responded to. How do you do your bodily functions? You don't have a restroom. What do you? How does that work, my friend?
5-gallon Home Depot bucket.
Yeah.
Like literally. Yep, literally.
But over time, over 60 plus days, 70 days when you were solo, I mean, does that get dumped in the ocean, or how does that work?
Oh, yeah. No, you don't. Yeah. So you're only allowed to throw pretty much two things overboard during the crossing. One is your waste,
Yeah.
like human waste, and
Yeah.
then one is the biodegradable leaves.
Toilet
Got it.
paper.
Yeah. And everything else needs to ideally, again, when Mother Nature comes in and it's a violent day, some things may or may not get lost, which I think you had some challenges with, of like equipment and things like that that may or may not have been separated from the boat or were damaged. But yeah, that's interesting to know. So
Well, and the race organizers take it so seriously that, like, after we complete the race, one of the things we have to do is undergo an inspection
yeah,
where we have to show them all of our waste from our food packaging and everything, so that they believe that we didn't throw it overboard, that they
Yeah.
actually see the waste, so we're not actually polluting the ocean.
love it. Love it. Hey, Marianne, there is one more sort of image that I had. I know I stopped sharing there, but it's a video. Is that of the new boat? Should I show that here, or because then we can see the details of the boat?
Sure.
Yeah,
That'd
let's
be
do
great.
that. And then maybe you can kind of explain, I can maybe even stop it or whatever, Owen, and this will kind of describe what you were describing about these forward and rear cabins, right? So I think this is in your garage. Is that right?
Yeah, we just got the boat wrapped on Thursday, and so we took this video after we came home. So like right there where it
Oh.
says Okizu,
Yep.
and if you can let it go, because it'll turn, the camera will turn around.
Okay.
We go a little bit further, and then it's going to turn right now.
Yeah.
And so right there, that's the forward cabin that Jamie will kind of be using as her cabin.
Does
Sure.
like the wall open up when you say that, or how does that work?
That glass, that plexiglass door, those if you back it up a little bit,
That
see right
opens
there,
up. Yeah.
that's the cabin door.
Yep.
And so she opens that, crawls through it, and then I've got one on the stern cabin that you see right there. And so that's the cabin that I'll be in.
Are you fully extended out from head to toe, arms extended? Or are you in a sort of like a fetal position?
So in Jamie's cabin, she's completely extended, and it's all kind of a nice big place. This cabin, I'm extended, but my feet actually go into a little cubby hole that goes underneath the deck.
Okay.
So the lower half of my body is in this little tiny opening.
So your feet are here, your head's on the other end.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so you're not having to be scrunched up per se.
No.
You're still in a pretty tight, cocooned, sealed up environment, obviously, right? So that, this is not for those that are claustrophobic. I can guarantee you that on many different levels, right?
Yeah, no, especially that stern cabin.
Yeah. Yeah, fascinating stuff here, guys. And again, they're in the middle of the ocean. They're going to be in the middle.
So one comment on the wrap.
Yeah.
Is in this Pacific race, there's 14 teams, but there's only 2 of us that are full American teams.
Oh.
And there's one other team that's got half the team is from the US and half is from Europe. But one of the teams is from Denmark, and they were showing the video of their wrap on social media, and they're doing a very prominent Denmark flag color scheme on the bow. And I was like, well, we got to represent here.
You gotta get the RWB fully displayed, the red, white, and blue right there. And I love it. It's very very tastefully done. Just the image of the flow of the ocean and the waves and stuff like that. No, just the boats looks amazing. And then obviously the earlier picture of how you guys have reskinned it. It looks fast. It looks like you're ready to rock and roll. And obviously that's pretty much a solid statement of where you guys are from. So kudos to you two on that. Very cool. What is the goals and the plans, if any? I have no idea. How do you, being an endurance coach, you have different strategies and plans. I mean, what's the strategy with you and Jamie going into the next couple of weeks here when you guys start out?
Well, so what happens is we are required to be in Monterey starting the morning of June 2nd, and we're there through the race start on June 12th.
Yeah.
And during those 10 days, we have daily meetings with the safety team. And then the safety team, what they'll actually do an extremely detailed inspection of all of our mandatory equipment, of the boat, all of our food. We actually literally lay it all out on the ground and they come by. We got 13 pages of mandatory equipment, and they come and they inspect the equipment. And they also, as part of their inspection, they're verifying that you actually know how to use each piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And then we're doing things like media interviews, they take before and after photos. They weigh you before the race start. We'll be getting weather and navigation briefings.
Yeah.
And so all of that happens over the 10 days leading up to the start of the race.
It's a pretty darn serious, very sophisticated, very the technology is super impressive. And with that, like I mentioned before, I'm assuming there's going to be that app that I would download again that has the challenge on it. And this is an app that has many different events that I remember seeing in there. Obviously, I was just tracking you for the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic challenge, but there'll be one for this newly branded toughest row or whatever it's called now, instead of Pacific Challenge. What's it called? Yeah.
It's World Toughest Row Pacific.
Yeah.
World's Toughest
And
Row Pacific.
Jay,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And as soon as they get all the boats on with the beacon set up, I'll send out the link. And then everyone can download the YB. It's called Yellow Brick YB Tracker. And it, as you recall, every 4 hours they get pinged, and you can literally follow progress every 4 hours of Owen and all the other contestants or the competitors.
It's
Pretty
super
cool.
fun. Yeah. It's for the audience. It's super fun. I'll make sure that in the podcast, just, sort of description notes, we'll get all the two most important things are, how do we get the tracking software so that in the specific event, so that detail, Marianne, would be great so that we can start tracking. And then two, obviously, and most importantly, is getting the charitable components, like how do we contribute to Ocean, to Owen and yours efforts, specifically through you guys. Obviously those details are critically important, but I will tell the audience, when I was tracking during Owen's adventure, and again, this was not an 8-hour, full day of Ironman training, right? Or 17 hours or whatever you want to call it. This was 70 days, but I would remember constantly being on my phone at the very least every morning when I was up. And you guys know me, I'm coaching early in the morning at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I'm doing that the first thing. Where the hell's Owen? Where is Owen? How far has he made progress on? And I remember just like there would be ebbs and flows of like, Owen's, boy, he's inching along, I don't know what's going on, to he's hauling ass and taking names. So obviously the winds and the water gods were in his favor. But it's super fun, guys. Hopefully we'll get an audience, a bigger audience than even you've had before tracking. Hopefully we can get that through the podcast here. But I think we're getting close. To wrapping this up, I wanted to kind of give the mic back to you two. Is there anything that of interest that would be important to kind of mention about this next adventure, or did I really cover everything?
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting is we get asked, because we've done the Atlantic, is, oh, this is going to be, you've already done it before, so now it's going to be easier. And it's actually going to be a harder row, even though it's 200 miles shorter. And it's the issue is the currents and the winds off the coast of California. Everything wants to push you down to Mexico, while you're trying to go west or southwest, and we're gonna get hammered for three weeks or so as we come out of Monterey, with everything hitting us basically beam on. And that's why the race organizers, this race, and there's another race that goes out of San Francisco, neither race will allow solo rowers because it's just too hard to get off the coast of California.
I did not know
And
that.
for a race,
Keep coming back. Keep coming back. You guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. We kind of got cut off there. It's still recording, so hopefully we've got that little bit of glitch, everybody. But yeah, so you're just kind of, to re-summarize, just to catch up, you were talking about the significance of why they don't have single rowers because of the impact of the winds and the currents pushing you down south. But that said, I mean, do you want to touch on kind of concluding on your point there? What else was there?
No, I think that, well, that's the thing. Even though it's a shorter row and we've done it before, I think the conditions are going to be tougher in the Pacific than they were in the Atlantic.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we all, especially Marianne, I'll come in behind her, wish you and Jamie tremendous success, but most importantly, a safe row to Kauai. It should be a spectacular adventure. I can't wait to be part of that. And that was the cool part of having the connection with the app. It just, you felt like you were part of that, and the encouragement. You've got the Facebook page, right? So that's the primary communication, right? With people posting and just giving you go, Owen, go type of scenario. So now it'll be you and Jamie, but I'm excited for your venture, wishing you the best and safest. I mean, the preparations going into it, the tediousness, keeping yourself safe and injury free between now and when you get pushed off, you know, all the moons and the stars are going hopefully in your direction, my friend. But can't wait to see you get started, and more importantly, getting you to that finish line. And so I wish you both the best. Marianne, you're a critical part of that. So good luck with the navigations and keeping these guys on the straight and narrow, but all the best to you. We'll get the information out. And what's the proper terminology I should say as a retired Navy man? What do you say in terms of best of luck?
Fair winds and following seas.
Fair winds and following seas. Yeah. All right, my friend. Everybody, thanks so much to Marianne and Owen again. All the best of luck. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We'll get all that information out here shortly, and wishing everybody a great day. And Owen, best of luck, my friend.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay.